Hey guys, my name is Haley, and today we're going to be filming a library book haul. I will preface this by saying I read books from my library, specifically on audio and ebook, and have for the last several years all the time. Every audiobook I've been listening to for the last several months and any ebook I have gotten that wasn't from KU was from my library. I don't really buy ebooks ever. All of them are from my local library. But I will say it's been years since I've been inside the library for anything but their library book sale that they do like quarterly throughout the year. So this is the first time I had been in there in a very long time to check out books physically from the library, and I went a little bit crazy. Do I only have 3 books to read all of these? Yeah. Are a lot of them graphic novels, and I might actually be able to do that? Also, yes. So let's get on into it. First one that caught my interest was Undocumented: How Immigration Became Illegal. I also will say all the ones I got were not available on their ebook catalog if I got them physically. Because if the ebook was available to me, I'm way more likely to read the ebook just because Kindle is more accessible to carry around, but this one was not on their digital catalog, so this is by Aviva Chomsky, author of They Take Our Jobs and 20 Other Myths About Immigration. And it's exactly what it says. I've been reading a lot of books, as many as I can get my hands on, about undocumented immigrants, because I think the lies and misinformation that has been going on around them due to a certain president's campaign of hatred is ridiculous, and I want to be fully informed on how to debate that with people when they say stupid shit online or in person, honestly. Then we have what are you getting wrong about what you were getting wrong about Appalachia. Appalachia in general has really fascinated me because a lot of like horror, like spooky, scary stories come out of there, and this tiny little book looked very fun. I think this one in specifically deals with JD Vance because I think he's from Appalachia, or he talks about it a lot in his book Hillbilly Elegy. And I, as you might imagine from my last comments, don't like him. So I wanted to read more about Appalachia in general and see what this tiny little book had to say about it. And we have Trans by Helen Joyce. I honestly don't know very much about this besides what the title literally says. But the back says, biological sex is no longer accepted as a basic fact of life. It's forbidden to admit that female people sometimes need protection and privacy from male ones. I am guessing this is from a pro-trans perspective. If it is not, I will immediately throw it into the pits of hell, and by that I mean the return slot at the library. But from my cursory glance, it seems to be pro-trans. So in this place, we say trans lives matter because they do. And so I wanted to pick up a book that it was not available through their digital catalog either to check out and read more about it. Next up, we have 2 books that I've almost bought and are both in my thrift books cart as we speak, so I figured I should check them out for free since I have that ability before spending more money. And that is Trans Kids and Teens: Pride, Joy, and Families in Transition by Elijah C. Neely. And this is specifically about trans youth and social justice issues surrounding that. Elijah C. Neely is a therapist and former deputy executive director of New York City's LGBT Community Center, and himself a trans man, has written the first ever comprehensive guide to understanding, supporting, and welcoming trans kids. And as someone who works with children, I feel like this is an important important resource that anybody dealing with teens in particular should read, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. I don't know if I will finish this massive book. This is by far one of the biggest books that I got in the next 3 weeks, but we're going to try. And then I have another book that's been in my thrift books card, and that is Raising LGBT Allies: A Parent's Guide to Changing the Messages from the Playground by Chris Tompkins. This deals with a lot with homophobia with children and teenagers, how heteronormativity can be harmful if not addressed early and clearly enough. It offers specific actions parents, family members, and caregivers can take to help navigate conversations, address heteronormativity, and challenge societal beliefs, which, as someone who has definitely dealt with parents, even with the youngest children that I usually work with, like 2 and 3-year-olds, who give us the absolute crap of oh, my son can't play with dresses, he's a boy. My son can't play with baby dolls, he's a boy. Your son doesn't care, and neither should you. Your son also might not identify as a boy in a couple of years, and you need to deal with that now. Otherwise, they're going to hate you. That is my perspective on this. So I've been wanting to get this book. Actually picked this one up in a bookstore a couple months ago and never didn't end up picking it up, and I'm regretting it since then. So I was super excited to see this one. Next up, we have the Boho Manifesto. I absolutely picked this up because it was bright pink, and I was like, what is that? I think this has to deal with a lot of things to do with psychedelics and like being nomadic. It just sounded interesting to me. It's got a different perspective from things I would normally read. It's an insider's guide to post conventional living. The Bohemian Disruption is here. Free your mind, free love, the social safari, grow your own boho home, and meet the new boss. This sounded fun. This is also something both me and my partner will probably pick at over the next couple of weeks to just read from. So I don't know if this is one I will read cover to cover, but I will definitely check it out. Next up, I have Rising from the Ashes by Paula Yu, Los Angeles, 1992. And this is about a jury returned not guilty verdicts in 1992 in a trial of 4 police officers charged with the brutal beating of a black man named Rodney King in Los Angeles. And thousands of fires were set, causing more than $1 billion in damage. 12,000 people were arrested and 24,000 were injured, 63 died. And this is told from the perspective of a Korean American who is the author, to talk about the racism out in LA, as well as this horrific act of racism that happened within our judicial system. So I thought I would check this one out. It is also relatively short compared to a lot of nonfiction, so I figured I would read it. And this one I picked up because it was not available in my digital library category for some reason, and that is Hive Mind, The New Science of Tribalism in Our Divided World. And this is literally about people being in echo chambers online and on the internet. About what happens when we socialize only with like-minded groups to the point that we lose the ability to connect with people who don't share our tastes, interests, and heritage. What happens when our tribes merely confirm our worldviews rather than expand them. So that's always a subject that interests me, so I picked up this one. And then a lot of the rest of these I picked up in the young adult section, and my library's young adult section is so inclusive that I almost cried. So we have An Indigenous People's History of the United States for young people. I've been wanting to get this book, and the fact that there is an adaptation for young people is a lot more accessible for anyone, but especially me, for someone who has a million like super long nonfiction books on their TBR. I figured I would start out with this version. And then we have Determined to Stay, Palestinian Youth Fight for Their Village. Don't think this is a graphic novel. Yeah, no, it's not. It's a regular novel or nonfiction. And this is very timely with all of the conflict that has been going on in Palestine. And I've been wanting to get more into reading about those subjects, and this is a very accessible way to do so. Then I have Why Is Everybody Yelling? Growing Up in My Immigrant Family by Marisabina Russo. And this is about a girl growing up in the 1950s New York. And judging by the title of Why Is Everybody Yelling? I'm sure it's dealing with a lot of the daily life of in the 50s of immigrant communities, and I'm very interested in reading about that. And this one is told in graphic novel format with a lot of text on the page, as you can see. And then I have The March Against Fear, The Last Great Walk of the Civil Rights Movement and the Emergence of Black Power by Anne Bossum. This is also by National Geographic, which I thought was cool. And it's exactly what it says. It is one of the last great walks of the Civil Rights Movement. Then along those same lines, I have the Black Panther Party, and this is a graphic depiction of a lot of things that the Black Panther Party did in its time. And this is something that has really started to interest me in the last year or so, as I've followed several people on TikTok who have been talking a lot about this, and I knew nothing about it. So I figured this would be an accessible way to read more about this entire movement. Then we have Amazon's Abolitionists and Activists, A Graphic History of Women's Fight for Their Rights. We support women's rights and women's wrongs in this house, and this also is a graphic novel about history. And as someone who has tons of history books that I currently own and have been picking up secondhand, I really am excited to have graphic novel versions of those to make them more accessible to more people. Speaking of which, I have Anne Frank's Diary, the graphic adaptation. I was really excited to see this because I didn't know that it existed, and I'm very excited to read this, even though it's a very depressing story and something I read in like middle school. And then we have the book that is the contention of all of the book bans in schools, and that is Genderqueer, a memoir by Maya Kababe. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. I will look up that author's name when I do actually read it. And this is literally this author's story, and this is one of the books that constantly comes up in banned books lists for schools, even though it's literally a way for kids to relate to the author's experiences. And I'm very upset that this is being banned in so many places, so I figured I needed to read it to be able to combat any of those arguments. And then we have two just like queer reference type things. We have Be Gay Do Comics. This is about queer people in their comics, I believe. Queer history memoir and satire. And it sounds really fun. It has a lot of different authors and such in it, and I'm very excited. And then last of my 18 books that I got from the library today, I have Seeing Gender, an Illustrated Guide to Identity and Expression by Iris Gottlieb. Forward by National Book Award winner Kacen Callender. Oh, I've read a book by Kacen Callender. That's exciting. This is also more of a mixture of a reference book as well as pictures and such to make this type of information accessible to others who are not as likely to read like a 600-page history book. So there's a lot about queers and the South in here, which I'm very excited to read about. But yes, this is the last one on my library TBR. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this. Let me know if any of these interested you down below, or if you have read any of these and you think that I will like them. Please comment that down in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys next time.